I'm transgender, non-binary, and I don't want to be searched by a man. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights.
Welcome back, Miller Watch Nation. I'm your host, Degenerate Jay. Let's get right into the controversy. Now, here's the thing. You are joined by your host, like I said, Jay, the one man who has yet to publicly misgender Ezra Miller in an Ezra Miller news video, thus not giving the haters and for some reason Miller bootlickers an out to ignore the actions of said acteur. Now, you may know Ezra Miller as the famous person who has terrorized Parcheesi owners everywhere, allegedly drawing a weapon, a firearm, on someone over an argument about the origins of Parcheesi. Also, allegedly, but on camera, shoving a woman to the ground. And, of course, also with arrest videos on camera. Now, here's the thing that you're going to think. You're going to think, Jay, you're someone who talks about second chances all the time. Jay, you say people should have second chances. I absolutely agree, but I usually think there's a bit of a cool down period. You know what I mean? There's a bit of a refractory period, and there's a break in the middle, okay? We don't just go right back into the action immediately. We take a little bit of a break. And DC doesn't really seem to understand that. WB doesn't seem to understand that. Now, this is something that personally I would not care as much about if the news of Henry Cavill's departure from WB's new DC universe wasn't so sudden and random, okay? So if we are really going with a full reboot, fine. Because right now, this is a rumor. I'm still not happy about things like bringing back Cavill and then immediately ditching him. I think that that's a really poor look on WB's part. And despite what other people say, I personally believe that in business, when you start making promises to someone, if you are a new company that comes in and takes over that, I believe you have a bit of a moral obligation to at least try to honor some of those agreements and promises, to at least try to do good by what the old guard was saying. I just wanted to clarify this for 1 second because I know not everyone will agree with this. You don't have to think this specifically about this case, but this is something they teach you in every business class. This is something that pretty much every businessman will try and teach you when you take over a company, is that if you are going a different direction, that doesn't just mean that you just straight up cut it off immediately. What you try and do is at least look good about it, right? At the very least, for saving your own face, if you're going to back out of promises, you try and do it gradually, a bit at a time. You say, hey, that was the last guy. I'm sorry things have gone in a different direction. The company's going in a different direction and we're moving this way. When you just do it immediately and you just straight up slice right into there, you just cut the throat immediately on that, it makes your company look bad and it makes you look untrustworthy. Yes, in the same vein, it's not fair for you to be held responsible for the things the last people did and said. I understand that, but think about it. It's just how business works. If Coca-Cola tomorrow did something stupid, in 10 years, it might be different people, running the company, but it's still the same company name and brand. They are still marketing off of their entire past. With the past comes the good and the bad. So when you make a promise, it's good to try and at least partially fulfill it, even if you're the new guy, or to try and slowly back out of it, not just ditch it immediately and make yourself look like a dick. That's just not a great business move because it ends up alienating your audience and alienating talent from wanting to work with you in the future. Whenever a company backs out of a deal with an actor and they just straight up pull the Band-Aid off right away and ditch them, look at Johnny Depp, look at situations like that, all that ends up happening is they look bad in the long run with their audience, especially if new information comes out later, and they are then forced to pay massive amounts of money if they want to get that talent back and get them in their good graces again. Otherwise, they've completely alienated those people. Most people aren't willing to just run right back to a job that essentially fired them, said, pack your stuff, get out of my office. They're just not willing to go right back to that. So you have to be really careful with this kind of stuff. And I just wanted to clarify, that's why I have those feelings about Cavill on a business side. I have my own ones as well in terms of how that resonates with fans. I've already talked about that. But business-wise, I just don't think that that was a good move to do so suddenly. And if this is true from IGN, which is that Ezra Miller is allegedly staying around for the new DC universe, this is just another slap in the face to actual fans of DC. Now, when I say actual fans of DC, I'm not saying that crap like Well, actual fans of DC, they won't support the new movies. If you go watch the new movies, that's fine. That's great. I'll probably see some of them. I don't know. I'm just not very excited right now. But what I mean is the people who have kind of stuck by WB and DC, they've wanted the movies to be good, whether they're the biggest fans of the Snyderverse or the biggest haters of it, and they want the movies to be good and they want to enjoy them. These people have kind of sat here enduring Ezra Miller's borderline domestic terrorism, in my opinion, for quite a while, because there's basically been an announcement that Henry Cavill is gone, Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam is gone. I know some of us have differing opinions on that. I always thought that that character was fun. But when it comes to Ezra Miller, for some reason, they might be getting a pass, because according to this report from Variety that was then told again by IGN as news goes, and now is being parroted by me, your number one source for Miller Watch news. Variety was told by sources that some Warner Bros. Discovery's executives are still willing to work with Miller, and according to the report, the fact that Miller has stayed out of trouble since they began mental health treatment last summer has reopened the door for Miller to appear as the Flash again in the future. Now here's the thing with this. Again, second chances, I'm all for. We would not have Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, which is one of my favorite fictional characters in any on-screen adaptation of anything, if it weren't for second chances. But you usually face some sort of consequences during that time. And look, I'm not hard to please, okay? Short of recent allegations, I'm the guy willing to just say, I don't even really care anymore about the Logan Paul stuff, all right? You know, with the forest and everything, it doesn't take that long for me to forgive, forget, and move on. But the problem is there has to be some kind of repercussion for that. I don't mean cancel culture, but I mean some kind of consequence to the things you're doing. If you are out there throwing women to the ground on tape, if you are out there having what appears to be, in my opinion, drug or alcohol-induced mental health breakdowns, when you are out there basically, if not resisting arrest, I would say coming really close and trying to play off the card of your gender identity as a way to get out of trouble, which is something that, in my opinion, Ezra Miller has done time and time again, with quotes such as, I'm gender non-binary, I don't want to be arrested by a man, you know, stuff like that. There's just a lot of shield throwing when it comes to Ezra Miller, where this person knows how to play the game, they know how to hide behind things, and they know how to manipulate people in the world who are very often looking to find themselves and figure out who they are, who saw someone in Ezra Miller. They saw someone who represented them, right? This doesn't mean much to people like me, and here's why. I can throw a stone in any direction and find someone pretty much like me in Hollywood. A dude who's into women, probably white. That's it. Now, we might not have anything in common, but they just look like me, you know what I mean? There's a lot of people that don't feel that way, and you can disagree with their feelings. That's fine. I really don't care about that. I mean, I'm the guy who doesn't like the Tim Drake comic. I still get shit for that now. But you know, with Bernard and everything. But the thing that I'm saying with that is that people gravitated towards Miller. Why? Because Miller was someone that they thought they could see themselves in. And what did Miller do with that? Time and time again, abuse it. Abuse the position, abuse the power, allegations of grooming minors, weird coincidences where people who were minors when Ezra was allegedly in contact with them are now basically hanging out with them in real life all the time, right? That kind of stuff is odd and bizarre and should be looked into, and there should be some kinds of consequences with this whole thing. Now, I know that basically, to go over a couple things too, because IGN does do a good job of actually catching everyone up on this. I know I meme on IGN a bit, but they did a good job with this. They talked about how Miller's legal troubles captured nationwide attention last June. The actor seemingly disappeared. Also, I don't know if they say this in this article, but during this whole thing, there was the accusations of throwing a chair at a woman, grooming minors, and other misconduct, charged with felony burglary in Vermont, pleading not guilty. There's going to be another hearing for that case on January 13th. Something that I didn't see them mention as well here was the Parcheesi incident where Miller allegedly drew a firearm, which was corroborated by multiple people. So if it didn't happen, there's multiple people making it up. That can happen, by the way, but it's part of a pattern of behavior. And then, of course, you also have the whole thing as well with Miller allegedly taunting police, which I remember actually seeing this Instagram post. I'm going to post it if I can find it again, where it was kind of like, you can't catch me, I'm in another universe type thing. It was just a whole mental health breakdown, insanity thing. And as someone who has severe mental health problems, okay, I have bad depression, I have very bad anxiety problems. They could be very different than whatever Ezra Miller's going through. I don't get a pass for just being a dickhole, right? Like, I don't get a pass for coming on here and just saying like, hey, here's me drawing a firearm on somebody. Or, oh, no, I know I'm being arrested, guys, but you can't arrest me. I refuse to be arrested by a man. I want to be arrested by a hot woman cop. Can you imagine the stuff that would happen if someone like me did that? But Ezra Miller has consistently gotten a pass, at least at the executive level, for their actions, no matter what. And why? Because when we talk about this, there's one word, too, that this is the funniest part to me about this whole story. There's one word that causes everybody to tune out, and that is the word they. There's people on one side that are like, you're just bending to this person's whatever, you know what I mean? They'll say, like, this person isn't really trans anyway. I don't really know. It is weirdly, what would I say, timed that Ezra Miller's transness has come to the forefront of news media only when Ezra Miller gets in trouble. So I don't really know. In that way, I do think it's used by a shield, or as a shield by Ezra and certain people. However, also every single person on the LGBTQ spectrum that I have personally talked to, from my friends to just random people on the internet, they don't like Ezra Miller. They don't see Ezra Miller as a good role model anymore, or as some kind of representation or anything. I don't really think there's all these people that are actually on the side of Ezra Miller. I think there is the militaristic far one side where it's like, you can't refer to this person with a plural pronoun, I'm not going to listen anymore. And then the other side where they hear someone misgender Ezra Miller and they hear like a he, and they're like, oh, so you hate all trans people, you can't talk about this. And I've noticed the conversation has really kind of gotten so diluted by this kind of stuff that I don't think is as important to the story. What I think is more important to the story is the fact that Warner Bros. Itself at a corporate level has no idea what it's doing, hasn't had any idea what it's doing for a long time. And as someone who, when he first came in, wanted to give James Gunn a 100% chance, and is now a little bit on the fence in terms of unconvinced with everything going on, to me, it's just kind of frustrating when you get criminal level actions, right? Like criminal files being charged, and things on camera that are really morally questionable at best. And then you get an apology about struggling from complex mental health issues, and people are willing to accept that and just move on. Now, if Ezra Miller wants to become a better person, you know, if they want to go through therapy, become a better person, go through all this and come out on the other side, I am 100% behind standing by Ezra Miller. Believe it or not. I know some of you won't be, but here's what I mean. If 5 years from now, Ezra Miller comes out, and I don't care what gender Ezra Miller is, I don't care what where Ezra Miller wants to put Ezra Miller's parts, I don't care what Ezra Miller's attracted to, I don't give a shit about any of that. I never have, I never will. It does nothing for me positively or negatively. It just doesn't. But if Ezra Miller comes out, regardless of any of that, either way, and says, hey, listen, I was a huge mess up, okay? Don't be like that. You know what I mean? Don't be like me. I was being an ass. This was incredibly dangerous behavior. It was very questionable. It was ridiculous for someone up on my level to be doing. I was squandering my gifts. I was squandering the goodwill of the fans. I was squandering the forgiveness of people and the willingness of people to forgive in the world, which is a good thing that people are willing to forgive. I was squandering all this, trampling all of it, stomping all over it, and I threw away my opportunities. I'm sorry I did that. I can't make it be better. I can't take it back. I can't unhurt the people I hurt, but I'm going to give money to, good causes that can help people. I'm going to do my best to stand by people now and be a good person. I'm going to do my best to give back to the world and try and, be better. That kind of thing, right? That, to me, is what Robert Downey Jr. did. Robert Downey Jr. was a mess. And I don't mean that to throw, RDJ under the bus. And this is something, too, I wish people would stop bringing up in interviews with RDJ. Like, leave him alone about it. But I think he's a success story. He's an example of somebody who came back a much better person. And there's tons of examples of these throughout Hollywood and throughout American and world history. of people who were just a bad person who reformed, you know, and fixed themselves, and they were willing to come back and be a better person. I mean, again, throw a rock any direction in the rap industry towards any rappers around in the 80s and 90s, and you can find a bunch of them still around right now that are genuinely decent, good, moral guys who were involved in gang activity, who were involved in shootings, who were involved in drug pushing and all kinds of stuff, right? And now they're not. And that doesn't mean that it's okay that they were. What it means is it's okay for people to grow, get better, come back, and still be successful. I don't believe that anybody who goes through any kind of problem or causes any kind of problem should be dragged out back and put out of their misery. You know, like, we don't need to Old Yeller everybody or their careers. My problem, though, is when it's a continual pattern and there's really no repayment for that. There's no recompense. I don't believe that Ezra ever paid any kind of societal dues for any of this. I don't believe that Ezra ever really had to deal with the consequences of their actions. And on top of that, if this is true, if people like Henry Cavill are ditched immediately, if people like Ben Affleck are in, out, we got a problem here. Because at some point, there needs to be some consistent standards as to how you hold these people accountable. It has nothing to do with gender identity or sex or any of that stuff. What it has to do with is the fact that you have people who have gone through none of this crap just getting the boot immediately, like Henry. And then you have people like Ezra who are allegedly going to be sticking around. This is such a joke to me if this happens. And there's so much stuff happening. Like, Cavill and Gal Gadot had reportedly shot cameos for the Flash movie that, according to, different websites, have been cut as part of Gunn and Safran's new DCU plans. So if you're willing to cut out these other people, but keep Ezra after all of this with no real growth, you cannot tell me that a simple apology last year and then staying out of trouble is a ton of growth. It's been almost no time. There was no jail. There was really nothing like that, and there's still a court case ongoing, all right? This would be just like if I robbed a bank tomorrow, and then I came back 3 weeks from now after an apology, and I expected you all to just move on. I don't expect that. Now, would I hope that maybe after a couple years in prison, and I actually maybe reformed and became a better person, would I hope that at least some of my kind audience would be willing to move on and understand that I made a really dumbass decision and wanted to be a better person? Sure. But that's after there was some kind of payback for that. Not revenge, but some kind of time, some kind of growth, some kind of period of a break. I don't think that you can just hop right back in after all of this and be like, I'm good now. No worries. Don't worry about it. And DC and WB can be like, hey, Ezra's good now. Hey, Ezra, what's up? Especially after not really publicly denouncing Amber Heard after all of that stuff, despite not standing by Johnny Depp. You know, this is my big problem with WB. If WB just wanted to be a bunch of idiots and just not stand by anybody anytime accusations came up, I wouldn't agree with that, but at least they'd be consistently idiotic. Their idiocy right now is just all over the place. They're willing to not stand by Johnny Depp and ditch him, but they're willing to stand by Ezra Miller and Amber Heard when there's stuff like on camera or on tape. I just don't get what we're doing here. Somebody make it make sense to me. And I don't really want to see, I will add this in at the end. I don't care to or want to see like the hateful comments. And what I mean by that is the people are like, well, clearly Ezra Miller, because Ezra Miller's trans, just has so many identity issues that's why they're a psychopath. I've seen that before on this channel. It really disappoints me in people in the audience because like I don't think that needs to be part of the conversation. I know plenty of people who are very nice who are like from all kinds of different groups. This to me, it's on the same level as when like you see someone on TV and their mugshot flashes and they're black and people are like, well, of course they're black. It's like, we don't need to drag this into the conversation. It's obnoxious. It derails away from what's actually the problem here, which is WB and a lack of accountability that they've held this actor to. And of course, as well, a lack of accountability that Hollywood holds its favorite people to. If you are a Hollywood favorite, if you are somebody who really, really matters and you're entrenched deep enough, it takes a lot to dig you out. And I think that that's a problem. That's nepotism, favoritism, which I know Hollywood's all about. And it leads to a really poor example for everybody, from the straightest person ever to the most trans person ever. It's just not a good thing. And it's really sad to me to see someone who, in my opinion, has just been going nutty all over the place publicly in the last few years, as the representation of people who, at least out of my few friends who are trans, don't really feel like a lot of people are like them at all. It's just too bad to see this is what people have to work with. Now, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I am interested to hear. I hope this is all not true, because every time I make an episode of Miller Watch, I start out excited and happy for like the first 3 minutes to be ragging on the whole thing. And by like the last 10 minutes, I'm just pissed off. So it's almost like a weird, I don't know. It's a weird series for me, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I appreciate you very much. I put up a much funner, lighter Lego Batman Batmobile put together review yesterday. Not many people saw, so if you haven't seen that already, please be sure to check that out. And of course, Jill has been uploading over on her channel, Magical Jill, and also putting up new comic book resin pieces on Enchanted Glamour that I hope you will check out. That's also on degeneratejstore.com, which I will leave in the description down below. That's a place where you can go to help support the channel. So I appreciate you very, very much. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shway.